So restricted performance on your Range Rover Sport. This video is how to fix it, or at least check for the most common instigators that cause it. There'll be a little bit of theory at the start. Let's get straight into it. So the red box marked on the diagram is your MAP sensor. It measures the absolute pressure of the intake all the way from the turbos through the piping, through the intercooler, throttle body, and then intake manifolds. If the amount of pressure that the computer expects is not as much as what the reading is, then it will throw a restricted performance error. It measures mass airflow through the two air boxes, which are the square yellow marked on the picture. And if the amount of air coming in through the air boxes, and it calculates the pressure, if it's not what it's expected to be, then you get the error. So how do you fix it? Well, you start by checking the most basic things. The intakes just underneath the bonnet, there's one on the left and one on the right. So Range Rover put this plastic, it's foam that's covered in plastic, and they stuff it in the bonnet, on the inside of it, to basically noise cancel engine noise, make the engine sound quieter than it is from within the cab. Sometimes it gets caught in the little hole right next to the air intake. If any of you watch LR Time, that's another YouTube channel, you'll see he went through weeks of troubleshooting and then found that it was this simple thing. So check the hole on the bonnet, make sure there's no plastic or foam blocking your air intakes, and let's move on. There's a fair bit to cover. Next, you're going to do a visual check of this piping. Because it's a diesel, the piping on the inside is oily and sooty, which gives you a clue. If you can see some oily residue on any of these pipes where they might have split or deteriorated, you need to check them and replace anything that's split. These pipes hold high pressure from the turbos all the way through the throttle body. So check for any oily residue, any holes in the pipes or splits, and replace anything there that needs fixing. So put up with me for a little bit longer with the slideshow stuff, and then I'll get into the video of taking things apart on the car. This is the throttle body. It's located at the front in the center. There's a clip that retains the air intake. That's the large rubber tube that comes up from the intercooler. And when you take that off, you'll see inside of it is a flap it's a spring-loaded butterfly. That can get caked up with soot, and also it's not the best design, and the flap it activates and blocks the intake, and then it sticks. It's very common on the intake. So if you find that you just stick your finger in and rotate that flap to its closed position, and then take your finger away. If it doesn't spring back to the open position, then you need another throttle body. You can clean it, like get rid of the soot and spray it with some lubricant and that, but I find that the flap eventually goes back to sticking again. It's easier just to replace, because it's only, if you get an aftermarket part, it's only about $300. I highly recommend you need a scanner and plug it in and see exactly what might be causing your restricted performance. My one's thankfully pretty simple. Essentially, there's a mismatch between the MAP sensor, which is back here. The MAP sensor senses the absolute pressure of the inlet manifold, and there's a mismatch between that and the MAF sensors. So there's two, one on each of the air boxes. And so the mass airflow, essentially it measures the amount of air coming in, and that is not matching up correctly to the MAP pressure. So I know there's a leak. Checked most of these pipes, not all of them, but anyway, I can see this intake manifold has got a split in it, which is really common. So I'm going to change that one out and then reassess the codes after that. But I've only got one code, and yeah, so I can't remember the exact code, but I'll put it up on the screen. And that one is that the mass airflow doesn't match the map, doesn't correspond to correct range of values, and so it knows there's an air leak, so it's telling me restricted performance. Let's get into it. So whichever manifold is split for you, because obviously there's two, there's left and right. Mine's the right one, which is the driver's side in Australia. You need to remove the wiring harness, any of the wiring harness that goes over the top of that intake manifold. Just undo the plugs and move them out the way. Undo the 15mm nuts holding the windscreen wipers on, because we're going to remove all the plastic shrouding that is in front of the windscreen. So there's two little plastic shrouds, one on the driver's side, one on the passenger side. They're just held in by those little clips, and then there's a big plastic section in the middle, but you can't remove that until the windscreen wipers are out. Then you've got that'll expose, once you've got them out, it'll expose the stabilizer bars that go between the shock towers and the sort of in the middle there. 4 bolts on each side, so take them out. And then you'll see there's a crossover pipe. Now that you've got access under that, there's a crossover pipe metal that goes from driver's side to the passenger side. Just undo the opposite side of whichever manifold you're replacing. You can see I've popped the passenger side off here, and then you've got to undo the other side with the rubber still attached, so that crossover pipe is out of the way. So you can see how I've left the short little rubber pipe there still attached to the crossover. When you undo the bottom of it, which is the top of the EGR, coolant's going to piss out everywhere. You can put some rags around or whatever. I'm going to fully clean it at the end, so I didn't bother. So remove this piece of foam, and there is a thin black hard rubber line that goes from your compressor to the passenger side air suspension. You need to be really careful because it's quite brittle. It's clipped in place by a couple of these little loop clips. Just undo it, and then we need to get that out of the way because there's these 10mm bolts that there's like a piece of plastic shroud that arches over the top of the intake. We want to remove that. So you got to undo the 10mm bolts that's holding that piece on. They're sort of against the firewall, a little bit of a pain to get to, and then when you remove it you'll have access. So yeah, I've just tucked, you'll see at the top there, I've tucked the that black pipe on top of the windscreen wiper just to get it out the way. See the yellow arrows? That's your driver side EGR pipe. So undo, there's 2 bolts on one side and then a clip on the other. And use a pry tool. If you've got a little pry tool, it's going to be so helpful for this job, to undo the breather for the intake manifold. So once we pull the foam out, you'll see where the injectors are. What you want to do is undo the wiring harness first. There is one plug that goes into the end of the diesel rail, and then the 3 injectors. Just get that whole harness out of the way. And then start undoing the fuel line with the white caps. What you want to do is not use a tool, just use your fingers and lift the white cap up. They're quite hard to do, but if you use a tool, usually you break them. So just grab it with your fingers and just try and yank them up, and they slide and then sort of hit a stopper, and then you'll be able to take those 3 off. So you might need to double up your spanners to get the diesel tubes undone. Once you have, that will expose the injectors. One of the problems here is we need to remove the diesel rail. It's held in place by 2 bolts, but one of the bolts is trapped by the coolant intake for the EGR, the coolant fitting. So what you actually have to do, as you can see in this picture, I've wound it out as much as I can, but there's still like, I don't know, 5 to 10 mils to go. So you start with the red arrows and undo all the fittings for the fuel rail, and then undo the blue bolts. They're all 10mm from memory. That holds the EGR and what we're going to do is rock the EGR out a little bit to get that bolt out. So I stick a plastic wedge in between the EGR and the engine, just to space it out a little bit. And once you got that wedge in place, you can undo the two green arrows, which is the two bolts holding the diesel rail in place. So the EGR, there's those couple of 8mm bolts you have to do at the back there, and there's one, and it's really hard to see, but it's down here under this metal tube. Just get a bit of electrical tape. Like once you crack it, like you've got to loosen it. I use like this tiny little 8mm socket, which just gets in there, but then after that, you know, it's not enough tension to undo. So get the electrical tape, shove it on, and then just pull the tape out, and it will undo. That's the only way I can describe to you how to do it. So the second bolt for the diesel rail is also trapped by the EGR actuator. There's 4 bolts you need to remove there. There are TORX bits, so take them 4 off. Yeah, so the EGR, it's really the part that make or breaks you. But just persevere. The little 8mm bolts, not that bad. And you only really need a couple of millimeters of room, which I've got now. Just taken off those few bolts, so then you can access the bolts for the fuel rail, the diesel rail, and the actual intake itself are under those. Just so you can see, so that fuel rail is only held in by those 2 bolts. That one's being trapped by the EGR. Both are really, but if you can, so this piece here that you take off, that's got the TORX bolts on it. If you take that out, you can get that one out, and then if you undo the 8mm ones and rock the EGR just to a fraction, you can get that one out too, and then the whole thing pulls out. After that, there's like this rubber foam thing. Just pull that out. Gently, everything's gently. And well, it's worth mentioning, try not to lean. I know it's hard, but try not to lean on anything, especially up here. These snap, they're very brittle. It's hard plastic. I know it's difficult, but yeah, if you snap that, then you got to muck around with the airlines, and yeah, it's just more trouble. So if you're halfway through the job and then, like me, you realise, oh yep, got to put the roller door down, but the car's in the way, and then you go and try and move it, you can't because it's not in neutral. But anyway, the short fix is at the bottom of your cup holders here, there's a little gap at the back. Just shove a big screwdriver in there, push down, and then lever it forward. So push down, lever forward. That'll pop out, and then underneath you got this. When you pull this, this puts the car into neutral, so you can roll it. Yeah, you just pull it, and then the little black thing has to stay vertical, and then you'll be able to roll it. So this is my homemade injector puller, and this bit just threads straight onto the injector. This bit is just a bolt that, because I've lost half of my injector puller kit, so, or I've lent it to someone and the dogs haven't given it back. So anyway, this is half the kit, and yeah, this basically just, this bit here just slides over the top, traps it, and then yeah, that's on the injector end, and that's on the pull. You can chuck whatever you want in here, like, and sliding hammer or whatever, and then just pull the injector out. Yeah, so pretty much just thread my homemade thing. onto that, and then that just slips over the top, the bolt head, and then that just grips it, and then sometimes it'll just pull, but these injectors are in pretty tight, so yeah, sometimes I just chuck a socket, like an extension through here, and just tap it with a spanner or whatever works, sliding hammer, whatever you got to get the injector out. The injectors are pretty sensitive, so yeah, I recommend not trying to attach anything to anything other than the thread of the injector to pull it out, even though my setup's sort of bit basic, bit cowboy. Yeah, it's a bit agricultural, but at least it's threaded onto the injector, so you know, if you're pulling on the top of the thread, it's not, you know, that's matched to that perfectly, so it's not going to damage it. The other thing is, like, you got to make sure there's no shit in there that might get in the injector, and also keep your injectors in the correct order. So you put the same injector back in the same port. That'll keep everything happy. If you were gonna, now's the time to replace that crush washer on the bottom of the injector there, and give everything a bit of a clean off. You can see a bit of carbon build up, bit of build up on the end of the injector there. So, and if you're lucky enough to have a borescope, you want to chuck down the port and have a little look inside the cylinder, make sure there's no like caked up carbon in the top of the piston and that sort of thing. Don't forget to poke a couple of your Mrs. G bangers into these injector ports, just to stop any shit getting in there. They don't need to be in there deep, but yeah, they'll stop getting rubbish in the ports. It doesn't hurt to visualise what you're doing, so across the edge here, I guess you call it, on the turbo side, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then across the back you've got 5 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you got 3 in the guts. I think it's 3. You got yeah, 1, 2, and 3 right at the front. These two here have a plastic arch, like this one. They're on little risers, so you've actually got a TORX screws in the top. Take them off, and then you got 15mm hexes underneath. Just screw them out. This bracket here sits at the back of the intake manifold near the firewall. It's held in place by 2 bolts, and there's 2 metal fuel lines that that's what it does. It supports 2 metal fuel lines. So what you have to do to attack it is the red arrow, you undo that bolt first, and then the little metal bar pivots out of the way, which releases the 2 fuel lines so that they're not in the bracket anymore. And then you undo the 2 bolts holding the bracket in place to the intake manifold. Yeah, it's a pain of a job, but this has to be removed to give the intake manifold enough room to be removed. There is also 2 quick release fittings for vacuum lines right next to those metal fuel lines that you can see. So undo those 2, and that makes life a little bit easier to get to the bracket bolts and to remove the intake manifold. So after that, you just undo all the bolts that are holding the actual intake manifold on. 13 in total from memory. There's 5 at the top, 5 at the bottom, 3 in the guts, and then just try and lift the intake manifold up and over the timing chain at the back near the firewall. That's a little bit restricted, but you can get it out without taking anything else off the car, and then clean everything up nice, ready for the new intake to be installed. On the new intake, I just put a little bit of little bit of Sika in the corners of the gasket, just to hold them in place, and then I just reinstalled the intake. So there's a couple of things I might not have taken photos of, but I had to loosen this nut for the fuel. Trying to get a shot of it there. I don't even know if you can see it, but the nut there, it's a 17mm. Just had to loosen it a fraction just to allow these two fuel lines to move out the way. Also, so there's a fair bit of flexibility in these. There is an 8mm bracket back there where it's wiggling that you can undo to get a bit more flexibility out of these. And the only real hurdle is getting the intake past your chain assembly here and the tensioner and the caps on the back. But yeah, apart from that, that's pretty much it. It'll all pull out and you can clean it up, throw the new one in, and off you go. There's obviously a lot of work involved with it, depending on what your mechanic wants to charge, but you you're looking at thousands of dollars. So I think personally it's easier doing it by yourself, and you know it's done properly as well. Some mechanics dodgy and that, but anyway, yeah, clean all this up, get it back together. I just put a little bit of RTV gasket maker just in the corners, just keep everything nice, stop from leaking out of the edges. This is a pretty handy trick for getting the sideways nuts into place. Just use a bit of plastic. So that's what it looks like with the new intake in place. This is just a generic one. It's not a Land Rover one. I suggest putting the intake in place and then putting the injectors in first, so that the injectors are centered on the holes, the cutouts for the injectors, and then bolt the intake down. You may also see that in the original intake there is no bolt, but on the aftermarket one there is, and it might obscure the last fuel rail, the last tube at the back closest to the firewall. So attach that tube to the diesel rail first, and then lower the diesel rail in place so that you can you've got enough clearance to tighten it up. Don't forget to move your filler cap for the oil from the old intake to the new one. You just do it by rotating the filler cap and then screwing it into the new one. So because you disconnected that fuel rail, the diesel needs to prime up. So the pump needs to push the diesel through that rail to the point where it's pressurized, and then yeah, so just hit the start about turn this aircon down a little bit. I'll shut my door, and then yeah, just without your foot on the brake, obviously. So do it till the P disappears on the dash. So the P will disappear in a sec, just like that. Do it over and over, like I reckon 7 to 10 times. See how it goes. Might take a bit of cranking for it before it goes. If it cranks, just let it crank for like 5 to 10 seconds, but then stop it. Otherwise, you're just going to do the battery in. And there she goes. Well, let's have a look. I'd definitely suggest hold off putting all the cowling back on until you know there's no leaks. But I'm pretty confident, so should be right. Take for a little drive, make sure there's no leaks and that. You'll get a little bit of smoke as well, or evaporation from down here. You know, when you undo the coolant lines, the coolant drops onto the fibrous shielding, the heat shielding, and it absorbs into it. So yeah, there'll be a bit of steam coming off around this area, but that's nothing to worry about. Probably just let it idle for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then once all the steam's gone, take it for a little drive. Anyway, I think I reckon the Range Rover's a fickle friend. I mean, yeah, look at it, like they're shit hot, but some of the mechanics and that, especially the way things have been designed, where they drop the body on the motor, which makes things hard to get to, that can be a bit of a pretty annoying. But otherwise, I mean, it doesn't matter what brand of car you have, you're gonna find problems with each of them, so you just choose your problems, really. For the most part, if you keep these maintained, regular oil changes, that sort of thing, it's all good. Anyway, thanks for watching, and yeah, hit that subscribe if you want similar content. Thanks.